The situation today on Sunday afternoon around the Russian-Ukraine border continues to not just be tense, but continues to ramp up to potential combat and outright war between the two sides. Shelling has continued to go back and forth on either side of the so-called line of contact or in between Ukraine and the Donbas area within the country of Ukraine. Tens of thousands of Russian citizens in the Donbas area have been evacuated into Russia proper, and very ominous comments continue to come from leaders of both sides, talking, more about how the possibility is that this could go to war. There was even a comment from one of the senior Duma members out of Moscow in the Russian parliament that specifically said that they think that something could happen overnight on the 21st, which could spawn war. And so it remains to be seen if that's just yet another piece of information that to set up what may come. We don't know. What we do know for sure is that all of the Russian forces are in place throughout the area, both in the water and on the ground around Ukraine in very threatening positions. Now, a couple of days ago, President Biden said that U.S. intelligence has told him that one of the targets of the presumed Russian attack is the city of Kyiv.
We have reason to believe the Russian forces are planning to and intend to attack Ukraine in the coming week, in the coming days. We believe that they will target Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, a city of 2.8 million innocent people.
Now, that may seem like a perfectly reasonable target because anyone would think that if an invading country is going to come into another, they're going to go after the capital city. But when you take a look at how the Russian forces are arrayed, the total number of forces that Russia has at its disposal here, which seems high on its own accord, when you compare it to historically what's happened when countries have tried to take large cities, you realize that that's actually not a fraction of the number of the troops they would have. And especially, for example, take this map right here. You can see from the way the forces are disposed all the way really on three sides of Ukraine on the ground. You see that up in the north part, north of Ukraine, there is a relatively small number, maybe a third of the total force arrayed. Now, we know from what President Biden has said and others that there's approximately 200,000 total Russian forces completely arrayed. That means that at most they've got 30 or 40,000 troops within striking range directly of Kyiv. Now, we know for sure from history, say in the 1941-42 attack of Stalingrad, where both sides had about 1 million troops to try to defend a certain area. Leningrad also had between 700,000 and 1 million attackers of German going into the city of Leningrad. And so we have seen that it takes hundreds of thousands of primarily infantry troops. City fighting is among the most bloody, horrible, and lethal kinds of operations you can get. It chews up personnel, it chews up logistics. It just takes an enormous amount of investment to be able to take it. Russia simply doesn't have that kind of troops. They simply don't. There's no way that they could even consider investing a major city of nearly 3 million people with 30 or 40,000 troops, because then they would basically do nothing anywhere else, and that would still be insufficient, most likely. What the more likely scenario is that Russia is positioning troops around there. They want people to think that they're going to invade the Kyiv, so that Kyiv moves troops up there, so that they pay more attention to there and less to the areas in the east of the country where the bulk of Russia's mechanized forces are. Now, in that area, the forces that they have are actually perfectly positioned to go in and slice off large chunks of territory. Ukraine is basically defending what they call the line of contact, which, as you've seen in many news reports, is basically a trench line. Ukraine has been working on a trench line and defending that, which is a very static situation. Mechanized mobile troops can make a breach of those lines almost anywhere that they want to with enough force and focus, and then they can just move at will behind that. Now, that's where Russia has an enormous advantage. So it would make sense to try to tie up as many Ukraine troops as possible defending against a potential invasion of Kyiv, while they really send the bulk of the Russians, since the bulk of their forces into the area around Donetsk and Luhansk, to try to just slice that off for their country. And I think that's based on the forces that are arrayed, the type of forces that are arrayed, I think that is a much more likely case than that Russia would actually invade Kyiv. Now, it's entirely possible, if not outright probable, that Russia would attack communication centers, command and control centers in Kyiv, try to knock out communications capability so that they can't communicate with their troops on the line of contact, and take out radar sites and anti-aircraft situations so that Russian aircraft can move in and out of that area without any concern. So that could probably happen. But in terms of an actual investment of the capital where they would try to take it over, Russia simply doesn't have the forces. They simply can't do it. It doesn't matter if they want to. They don't have the forces to do it. So Ukraine needs to be spending a lot more attention, paying attention onto the line of contact and being ready for mobile warfare, which I'm afraid they're just not ready for, which is why I think that this will be a very quick, certainly initial invasion, an initial operation if that's what Russia does.